The situation of the Ukrainian army continues to deteriorate rapidly in all areas of the Special Military Operation Zone. Even pro-government Ukrainian Telegram channels have begun to recognize this fact. According to them, the situation of the Ukrainian troops is getting worse with each passing hour. Surprisingly, even Ukrainian war correspondents, who have never hidden their pro-government views, began to declare the plight of the Ukrainian army not only in the Donbass, but also in the Kursk region. For example, commenting on the situation in the Kursk direction of the front, they bluntly stated that over the past 24 hours, Russian artillery and combat aviation inflicted fire damage on 16 brigades of the Ukrainian army in the area of 22 settlements. Moreover, pro-government Ukrainian news outlets were even forced to admit that on October 16, 2024, the Russian army liberated such settlements as Viktorovka, Lazaki, and Staraya Sorokina. Thus, even pro-government Ukrainian news outlets indirectly recognized that the Ukrainian army units fell into a real cauldron on the northern flank. It is reported that over the past 24 hours, the Ukrainian army has made 10 attempts to relieve its groups. However, all these attempts were unsuccessful. On October 17, 2024, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation also commented on the situation in the Kursk direction of the front. So, the Russian military department officially confirmed that the encircled units of the Ukrainian army in the area of the settlement of Lyubimovka were almost completely destroyed. At the same time, representatives of the Russian Defense Ministry admitted that the enemy, who was surrounded in the area of the village of Tolsty Lug, not only refused to surrender, but even attempted to attack the positions of Russian troops. Against this backdrop, the Russian High Military Command sent experienced paratroopers of the 83rd Separate Airborne Assault Brigade to eliminate enemy forces in Tolsty Lug area. The situation of the Ukrainian army in the Sudzansky district of the Kursk region has also deteriorated sharply over the past 24 hours. In particular, the deputy commander of one of the battalions of Spetsnaz Akhmet officially announced that Russian troops had completely liberated the settlement of Cherkasskaya Konopelka. According to him, the Russian army has already begun preparations for a military operation to liberate the city of Sudza. Currently, Russian troops are only 5 kilometers away from this city. Against this backdrop, on October 17, war correspondents declared that after the liberation of all villages in the Glushkovsky district of the Kursk Oblast, the Russian army crossed the border and invaded the Sumy region, seizing the Ukrainian Konstantinovka checkpoint. Ukrainian Telegram channels also confirmed this information. According to them, everything that happens at this checkpoint indicates that Russian troops are preparing to capture the village of Konstantinovka. Many Western think tanks have suggested that the invasion of the Sumy Oblast by Russian troops is not the beginning of a military operation to capture this Ukrainian region. According to them, right now, the liberation of the Kursk region is the most important thing for Russia. They expressed confidence that the Russian troops are preparing to go behind enemy lines and strike the Ukrainian army units in the Koronevsky and Sudzansky districts of the Kursk region, as a result of which the Ukrainian army will find itself in a tactical encirclement. In the Pokrovsk direction of the front, the Ukrainian army also continues to rapidly lose its positions. In particular, Ukrainian Telegram channels admitted that on October 16, 2024, Russian troops completely captured the settlement of Krasny Yar. In addition, the Russian army has begun to conduct a fairly large regrouping of troops in the Pokrovsk direction of the front. According to war correspondents, Russian generals are significantly strengthening the grouping of troops under the designation Vostok in center. All this indicates that the Russian army is preparing for a decisive assault on such large cities as Seledovo and Pokrovsk. Meanwhile, against the backdrop of the catastrophic failures of the Ukrainian army on the battlefield, the head of the KIEV regime officially presented his so-called victory plan. According to this plan, in order to defeat Russia, the West must accept Ukraine to NATO immediately, and allow KIEV to strike deep into Russian territory with the help of Western weapons. In addition, the West should also start shooting down Russian missiles over the territory of Ukraine and give KIEV full access to Western intelligence. Among other things, Zelensky demanded that the West strengthen sanctions against Moscow and deploy so-called non-nuclear means of deterrence on the territory of Ukraine. In the end, Vladimir Zelensky even started to blackmail the West. In particular, he said that if the West allows Russia to win this war, Moscow will receive all the strategic resources of Ukraine, which will significantly strengthen Russia on the world stage. He clarified that if Russia wins, Moscow will get access to titanium, uranium, lithium, and graphite, worth trillions of dollars. According to him, the West is simply obliged to prevent Russia from getting these resources. However, unfortunately for Vladimir Zelensky, his hopes for Western support for his so-called victory plan crumbled within a few hours after his speech in the Verkhovna Rada. In particular, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte bluntly stated that the North Atlantic Alliance could not support Zelensky's victory plan. Mark Rutte made it clear to Kiev that Ukraine would not be accepted into NATO, Kiev would not be allowed to strike deep into Russian territory with Western long-range missiles, and the West would not shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine. The same was said by the United States Permanent Representative to NATO, Julianne Smith. According to her, at the moment, it is impossible to fulfill the requirements voiced by President Zelensky. Against this backdrop, many influential Ukrainian politicians said that NATO and the United States had betrayed Ukraine. According to them, the West has begun to surrender Ukraine to Russia. In particular, the well-known Ukrainian politician and retired General Igor Romanenko bluntly stated that Kiev overestimated its strength badly, relying heavily on the West in this war. We all need to be realistic. Ukraine has lost this war. The West will no longer provide significant amounts of assistance to Ukraine. The Kiev authorities need to reassess the situation at the front and start peace talks with Moscow as soon as possible. Otherwise, Ukraine will completely lose its statehood, Ukrainian politician and retired General Igor Romanenko said.